something is and has been afoot since the beginning of Warzone and the launch earlier this year. What exactly? Well, that was kind of a mystery for quite some time, but through extensive story following, multiple Easter eggs, and a few data mines here and there, we know now of the existence of a nuke within Warzone and what is an event revolving around said nuke. Today, we're going to break down what we know about the event, what we need to know, and potentially when we can expect to see this actually happening. Let me know your thoughts down below as we go along. What are you hoping to see out of this event, and when do you hope to see it? As well, if you are new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button as we're on that road to 400,000 subscribers, and with a new game launching in under a month, we'll keep you up to date with absolutely everything you need to know. Finally, a huge thank you and shout out to Deadmau5, Jeremy, Jorge, Clint, Chuck, and crew for the love and supporting the channel a little further by using code ESPRESSO in the Modern Warfare shop. If you end up using my code for any purchases, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out your generous support. But anyways, let's talk about the event. So I think the first thing that is important to understand with said event is, where does this come from? Well, we've actually had a couple of Easter eggs progress the storyline throughout Warzone and the narrative going on in the background. It's sort of battle royale on the forefront and what you think about, but if you take a deeper dive into there of course is a storyline to follow through all of it. But back when we first dropped into Verdansk for the very first times in March, we had our first look at some of the things like phones, bunkers, and laptops that were found almost immediately whenever the game was first released here. And it's been used in that main storyline thus far, which seems like so long ago, but when we first discovered these, for a little while they did nothing but fuel speculation, and realistically they were there for Easter eggs that would be coming, but they weren't active at that time. They weren't active until the end of Season 3 to be specific, with an update pushing live the first real hunt that we had in Warzone to date, where we had to find a trigger phone, listen to the in-game quest trigger sequence, decipher the Russian code, which changed every single game, and then go to corresponding phones around the map in that code sequence, and if completed, you were able to open up Bunker 11, one of few bunkers that were not accessible by the recently introduced red access cards. Now, Bunker 11 had a lot of cool things in it. Of course, you had our first Easter egg specific quest reward in a blueprint format that we saw continue on throughout the stadium Easter egg, and then later on the train station Easter egg in Warzone as time progressed. But we saw things like the mud dropper in there. You saw a bunch of legendary crates, a bunch of cool stuff, but also perhaps the biggest part here out of this was the back room. There was a shiny red button that you could interact with on a control panel that, when interacted with, would then vent the steam from a room that you were looking directly into, and which it displayed a warhead and what looked to be components of a nuclear bomb. From there, that's where the speculation really took off and what the end game out of all of this was. But we didn't really see much more in terms of Easter eggs for a little while. Of course, we did see that stadium Easter egg with Season 5, and then the Easter egg also with the train station in Season 6. But Season 4 was kind of lackluster, which is unfortunate because Season 4 was hot off the heels of that revelation of a nuke being in play in Warzone. Really though, the story and prospect of that really only ever continued in the intel missions, giving away much more of what we know now as the narrative, and of course to where we are at the given moment with the storyline. Battle Royale again on that forefront, you're staying alive trying to win each game, but on the back end a huge storyline is going on behind the scenes. Which, now that we bring it up, let me know your thoughts down below. Would you guys like to see a full story of Warzone video before Cold War launches? Because there's actually a lot to follow with that. But things have kind of quieted down, at least up until recently, in terms of what's available in relation to a nuke event. We saw of course that we had the Know Your History event, which debuted Black Ops Cold War to the world, so we know that events are definitely in the minds of the developers and those working with Warzone. But what's interesting is that as of the Season 6, I guess, reloaded update that brought with it the Haunting of Verdansk update, but was actually downloadable last week, it brought forward a few things that are definitely worth noting and that progress this ideology of an event happening sometime soon quite a bit, for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, well, before the Phlebotomist was a melee weapon that was available to be used in terms of buying it in the shop, that was only introduced as of this past Tuesday. It was available in Warzone as of last week, but it would glitch out and then it would end up having the red button icon, the interactable placeholder, or maybe bug, as the ground loot spawn item. So again, this interactable piece is at the forefront of Warzone for some reason, so much so to the point that it was active and being introduced in place of a lethal. Additionally, we'll talk about these in just a second and a little bit more clarity. There are new intel missions that were data mined that do point towards this all culminating in one flashpoint, one nuclear event. We'll get to that in a second, but the other big thing that was data mined and discovered out of this update was that of the Rebirth LTM, what is, according to BK Tor and the Gaming Revolution, data miners and leakers who have a spotless track record with a lot of this kind of stuff here. The Rebirth event has an LTM with icons, with files associated with it that look to stem what is another event LTM in the game files currently. It's there and just about ready to go, it seems like. Now, is it finished? Is it something that we know what's going to happen because it's already completely in the game right now? No, which is where it becomes interesting and where it becomes a matter of, well, when is this going to happen? Truth be told, I think that if we're taking a look at this happening sooner rather than later, Intel actually may be able to help here with this. We just had our sort of week 10 introduction here with this, not this past week, but the week before with title update 1.28, new Intel missions went out at that point. That ended in the fact that all bunkers 1 through 11 were listed as online, so you kind of realize something ominous is at play here. Week 11 likely coming as of next week. Spoilers here for the next minute or so feel free to skip ahead if you want to. End up noting a couple of things. Firstly, the discussion of the future of Nova, which is notably the gas used in the Black Ops franchise. This is from an old school memo from the Soviet classified projects that was brought up in this intel, and it also had the coordinates on a sticky note in that memo for Washington, D.C. So kind of Cold War era stuff being introduced into the new Modern Warfare storyline. We also find out that Z, being Zakhaev, was using armistice operators to launch an attack, and we learned those as this last introduction here with this. Yegor, Wyatt, Zane, and Azur were all getting paid sizable amounts to work with Z. It also is noted that he has nuclear materials and their satellite images of where blast radiuses would be, and that being introduced into the storyline is a prisoner who would speak of an island. Week 12, which looks to be right now the furthest out that we have, and very well could be the last week of Intel. Without giving away too much, it looks like this could get really spicy at this point, where there's a reference to something half a click off the coast of Verdansk, and this event that's upcoming could threaten not only just Verdansk, but that something off the coast. So there's a lot of stuff that, again, I don't want to go too far into it for just spoiler reasons, because it is a lot of cool stuff that's going to unfold here storyline wise. But in terms of our event and pinpointing it down, I think really it depends on the Warzone transition, when we'll start to see Cold War direct tie-ins, whether or not we get a new map, whether or not we get new weapons, or whatever happens here with this. Let's theoretically say Warzone switches hands here right at the launch of Black Ops Cold War. Well, actually, that could work. Intel is introduced on a bi-weekly basis, right? So that means that week 10, what we had, was released last Tuesday, the 13th. Week 11's introduction will theoretically be this upcoming Tuesday, the 27th, and then week 12's introduction would theoretically be in another 2 weeks after that, being, you guessed it, November 10th, just a mere 3 days before the launch of Black Ops Cold War. So what a perfect time to get yourself ready for new content if that's when it's going to be debuted. There also is the possibility of seeing another title update here as of not this week, but the weekend following, to close out the Haunting of Verdansk, which may provide a little bit more insight here into how everything works, but right now that's just all speculation and theory. At least with the Intel missions, we have some sort of relative gauge that is going to be coming that we know of. A title update of 1.29 is something that is, again, just speculation. But here's the other thing that's interesting. This also could be something that happens after the launch of Cold War. I mean, we do know that we have these things like a theory Season 7 still on the discussion table for Modern Warfare, and that would require another title update for not only Modern Warfare, but also Warzone at that point. So we would see something being able to be slipped into the game to change it and alter it in a drastic way with that after the launch of Cold War. Now, if that's the case, though, we don't know. It's also rumored from other leakers that we won't see a new map until a couple of months after the launch of Black Ops Cold War. So kind of sticking to an annual changeover for Warzone and not necessarily Call of Duty, because if you remember, Warzone launched in March, not in October, with Modern Warfare's sort of premium game, if you want to call it that, of campaign multiplayer Spec Ops. It did not launch alongside that, so technically it's on a different timetable than that of a true release for the next IP. So maybe that's something to bear in mind as well, but that one just throws me for a trip because it seems like all this intel is ramping up to see something happen very soon. Maybe it is something, though, that we don't see a new map in terms of Warzone introduced for a little while, but this event ends up bringing over Rebirth Island, which maybe it's something that introduces a new side map like Alcatraz was to Blackout, and Rebirth Island could be theoretically something that happens in conjunction with Warzone, where both are still playable, but it kind of tides over the appetite before switching out to an entirely brand new world. Rebirth Island, of course, being able to be perfectly tied in then with the LTM name of Rebirth and what is rumored to be that nuke event name, but also it's something that could utilize the repurposed Alcatraz Island that we saw in the Warzone game files, where it's not necessarily Alcatraz, but it's the same sort of model and structure built out for that, but utilizing the setting of Rebirth Island from the Black Ops 1 campaign, an intro cutscene there with that. So throwing a little bit of continuity lore into it, but also giving us all something that's new while still familiar. So I guess this really all comes down to how everything unravels in the next 2-3 weeks here, because we are getting very close to some answers, and I'm incredibly excited here to see how it all shapes up. But that's where we're gonna wrap it up. I wanted to fill you in on the nuke event that we have on the topic of discussion here within the COD community. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think here of this? What are you, one, hoping to see out of it? New map, maybe a secondary map like an Alcatraz or Rebirth Island? And when do you think it will be happening? Do you think it'll be something that happens right at the launch of Cold War, or shortly thereafter, maybe a little bit after? Whatever it is, let me know your thoughts. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. We're getting all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, and of course, Black Ops Cold War. We have a ton of stuff coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So stick it here on the channel so you don't miss anything. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Probably live on both those. If you guys want to check my conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. Mine is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.